All right, so one of the most important things and one of my favorite things to talk about with our practices is when we start getting into the nitty-gritty of improving their processes and looking into the different rates of improvement across their standard operating procedures. And we really call this the might in the metrics, because metrics, they report things, but they help us make decisions that can help scale the practice. But to be able to do that, we have to have certain things defined. And I would say that these are a necessity. You can definitely just be tracking metrics just for the heck of it, but these are things to help create accountability and structure so that you can start to improve on your processes and look at things that are either bottlenecks or things that you're doing really well or things that you're doing really poorly, and start to address those things so that you can start to grow at the rate that you want to grow. So first off, we have to define the tasks that you actually want to measure. An example of this would be when a brand new lead comes in. Let's say we want to measure how long it takes for us to typically reach out to them. And so this is going to be a amount of time between 1 minute and maybe a month. And you have to really understand what you want to measure so that you can describe that to whoever is going to be doing the work and reporting that later. So defining the tasks that you want to measure. The next one is how to calculate that task rate. Each one is going to be a little bit different. Some of them will be just a numerical tally at the end of the day. Some of them will be throughout the day. Some of them people will have to calculate on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. But you need to be able to define that. An example of that would be that same example of the amount of time it takes for an office to reach out to a lead. They need to be able to calculate how much time it takes every single lead to be contacted. And then we need to look at the average time it takes to contact those leads. In the same way, let's say you have a certain amount of people that you are reaching out to. You want to know how often you are actually starting conversations with new leads. And that one is going to be more of just a tabulate or a tally that you would go through on a daily reporting cadence, where you would just say, okay, I had 15 people to reach out to, and I was able to contact or get in touch with, start a conversation with 5 of them. And so you're able to take that information and calculate it for the end of the day and then move on from there. The next one is how to record each result or each data point. So this can be the actual number, but it also needs to be where the person puts the data so that it can be looked at. People can make adjustments, improvements, and try and figure out what is really going on in your processes. The next one is who will do the work. This is really important. A lot of times practices will put more and more pressure on somebody that they may seem like they don't have a lot on their plate. Sometimes it's somebody that is not trained for those tasks to be able to do those. And a good example of that is one of the most important things in the practice is being able to actually reach out to somebody that is a brand new lead and get them on a call and get them to move towards setting an appointment. That is usually one of the higher paid positions at a lot of practices that are doing well, or for a lot of industries. It's called the setter. And people go through training and they go through a lot of different experience to be able to get good at that so that they can have good rates of contact and moving people through. It really needs to be assigned to an employee, not a specific person, but an employee inside of your organization so that you will only have to define it once. And whoever comes in and is in that role as an employee has those responsibilities to do that work, report those things, and take it through so that you don't lose out in case you have some turnover in the process. The next two, they kind of go hand in hand, how to report the data and who is that employee accountable to. These are so important. If you are recording the data just to record the data, that's better than not knowing your numbers. But if you are able to have that person report that data and understand what that data means, and then report that data to someone else who can help hold them accountable for what they're doing, what they're not doing, what they're doing great at, what they maybe need some improvement on, the rate at which they will improve will dramatically increase. And you're going to see that here in an example in just a minute. But we see that all the time, that once a practice is put the process in place for somebody to start reporting those data points, and they have somebody that they can say, okay, I did this well, I did this well, I'm still having some issues here. I want to focus on maybe figuring out how I can reduce some friction here, or I can lower the amount of time it takes to do this, so that I can maybe improve the rates here. Because when we start to look at those things, they amplify across the entire process that we're looking at. It's not just one thing we do and then one thing we do that are not related to each other. Each one directly affects the success of the next one. And we're going to see that in just a second. It's all about the gradual, steady, and across the board process that we really want to look at these metrics, and we want to improve, and we want to focus on. Having a 15% improvement here and a 7% efficiency there creates a ripple effect that amplifies downstream metrics. And what I mean by downstream metrics is whatever comes next in your process. If you do something really well somewhere upstream from it, it makes it so the downstream gets a huge benefit from that. And we'll see that in just a second. But I want to make sure and stress that it is so important to look at these metrics and understand that even having a slight increase or improvement is going to have a drastic improvement on the overall health of your business and your processes. So in this example, we're going to go through as if you have 50 leads per month that are coming in, and these are the metrics that you're tracking for those 50 leads. Right off the bat, I'm going to go through and explain the table really quick. These ones are the contact rate. So a lead comes in, what percentage of those leads do we actually get to contact? The appointment set rate, that's of course how many of those that we contact, but how many of those that we contact are we able to set an appointment with? How many of those actually come in and they actually attend the appointment? And then out of those, how many start treatment with us? Now, we work with a lot of practices. We understand these numbers. Your numbers may be a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse. Just understand that these are example numbers that we see pretty often. Pretty comfortable saying that these are close to standard across the board for most practices, especially the ones that are looking for marketing help. So normal practice, we're looking at about 30% of those 50 leads that came in that we're able to contact, which is about 15. We are able to set 40% of those as an appointment, which is 40% of that 15 is 6. And then the percentage that actually attend is 45, and that's 45% of that 6. So we have 2.7. And then out of those, we are able to start treatment for 70% of the people that actually come in for a consult. That's pretty good. That's pretty normal for people that actually get to come into the practice and have that consult. Having that 70% conversion rate is pretty normal. Now, let's say we look at our processes. We look through all of these different steps and we're able to make little improvements through every single step in the process. And we'll say that we increase by 20% in each one of those steps. And this could be something as simple as improving the amount of time between a lead being generated and when we reach out to them, or changing the verbiage that we use in text messages or emails, or just doing more outreach to the patients. These don't have to be huge things. I'll get into a really good example for our bottom one in just a minute, but a 20% increase is very doable and takes just a bit of intention and focus on these metrics and in processes to be able to do this. But it takes that 50 leads, and instead of having 15 that we contact 18 now. Doesn't seem like a huge number, but we keep going with the 20% increase, and we're able to set 48% instead of that 40%. 48% we are able to set those appointments. So we have 8 people set for the appointment. We have 54% of those that actually come in for the appointment, which is 4.6. And then we have an improvement on the treatment start as well, 84%. That is a good rate. That's over 100% increase just off of some very small improvements along the way. 100% increase off of a little bit of intention, a little bit of focus on your processes, reporting, and structure. That's very doable. One of our practices that had 7 locations, they were only able to reach out to and contact 1 in 10 of their leads that were coming in. Granted, they had a lot of key leads coming in, but 1 in 10 is not a good rate. So we did a few trainings with them. We helped them understand how much time they were taking to reach out to people, which was actually kind of an industry norm, which is about 2 days on average. If you're better than that, awesome. I applaud you. If you are more than 5 minutes, then we've got some work to do. But we adjusted their structure from when a lead comes in and when somebody reaches out to them. We changed how they reach out to them, the verbiage of their text messages, the verbiage of their phone call, the verbiage of their voicemail, all of those different things. And a lot of them were automated. A lot of them were simplifying their processes and taking things off of the know-how of the person that's calling. And we simplified the entire process for them, where they were able to contact 80% of the leads that were coming in. It was a huge change, and it was a change that happened over the space of 2 weeks. So this is across the board for 7 locations. They were able to make this change across the board, and this is what that looks like, where we had one metric that they focused on, that they made a huge focus on adjusting, improving, and it changed everything. So we'll say just off of these 50 leads, 80%, that's 40 people that we are able to now. And we take that 40 over here to this 40%. I'm going to keep these numbers for normal, as if this is the only thing that improved was just our contact rate. Instead of 6, we are now able to set 16 appointments. Instead of 2 people that come in and actually come in for the consult, we have 7 that come in. Same conversion rate. And off of those 7, we still have a conversion rate of 70%. We have 5 people that are starting treatment off. That's 166% improvement just because of that change, just because of that one metric that was adjusted. This is where a lot of practices get excited, because they understand that it's not that hard to make these changes to affect the huge bottom line of your business. These are not big things, but they do take intention and they do take focus, and it is a process, but it's doable. So let's take this a little bit further. We'll do the 20%. They were able to increase by a bit more than the 20%, but with the drastic improvement here as well. 50 leads again. We have 40 of those that we're able to contact. We have 48% of those that we're able to set an appointment, which is now 19 people. We have 54% of those 19 that actually come in for the consult, and we're able to start treatment for 84% of those, which is now over 8 people. That's a 360% increase from the base by just focusing on one major bottleneck, one major issue that was slowing down the whole process. The whole thing was just bogged down right at the beginning, and we fix a couple things. That starts doing really well, and then we make some incremental improvements across the board to make it an easier process for our customers, an easier process for the employees, and it totally changes the outlook of that practice that was doing worse per chair than the normal practice. That's a huge change. This is a full chair. This is people on the waiting list at month 2, because we have people in overlap for the treatments. This is amazing. This is a very healthy structure. That's all 50 leads. That's nothing crazy. But these things are really important. Look at your processes. Look at your metrics that you feel like would be important to be tracking. There are a lot of them. There are a handful that are very meaningful. These are 4 that are vital, I would say, in the process, being able to understand what is going on at a very bird's eye level, so that you can point to each one individually and say, my attend rate has fallen off a bit the last couple of weeks. I wonder what happened. So I go to whoever is setting the appointment, and then I go to the treatment coordinator and I talk to them. Maybe there were some more responsibilities that were put on the appointment setter. And so there's not nearly as much time that they're able to follow up with the person the day before they're supposed to come in for their consult. And so maybe that's the thing. So it's like, okay, let's adjust some things. So then there's a little bit more time for the setter to reach out to that person. But you're able to see different things that are going on in your practice based on the metrics that you're able to track and be able to sustain throughout the process. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to go through and help map out any of these metrics. If these are new to you, then I would love to help you structure these things so that you can really have a good understanding about what your practice is doing well, what they can improve on, and just the overall process of your practice. If you have any questions, please reach out, reply to this, send me an email. Happy to help.